is KGW News at noon.
Weather remains our big story here at noon today as we start with video sent in to us by a viewer named Katie Morton. She lives along the Siletz River there by Mack Landing, and you can see the river running high and fast at this hour. In fact, part of the Siletz is projected to rise 1.5 feet above flood stage this afternoon. We can continue to take looks around the area. This is farther south along the coast, Newport, where you can see the wind at times shaking our sky camera there in Newport. Also a very gray day along that stretch of the coast. Meanwhile, how about up on the mountain? Timberline Lodge, Skycam, a little more clear. Earlier this morning, you could barely see through that camera. It was so wet, but now we can see the snow up there at Timberline, but everything that's falling still along the lodge is rain at this hour. Back here in Portland, we're seeing all of that rain right there on area roadways. This is the Rose City Skycam pointed at I-5 North by the I-84 interchange, and that is a lot of standing water that those cars are driving through. One of the busiest spots for cars in the city, and it is soaked this afternoon. We also have a couple of closures we want to let you know about. Going back to the coast, the Tillamook, Seaside, and Neahkahnie school districts all closed today. So is Tillamook Bay Community College. Highway 101 is closed just south of Seaside from milepost 22 to post 25. That's all because of flooding. ODOT is suggesting people avoid that area until the road is back open. For the latest on area closures and delays, you can go to kgw.com/closings. Thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Drew Carney, and there is Chris McGinnis standing by for us in the Weather Center. So, Chris, let's get right to the latest here this afternoon.
It's been a wet go of it, right? Since the rain started late yesterday, Portland has already picked up 83/100ths of an inch of rain, 82/100ths in Vancouver. And you might say, well, that doesn't sound like very much. Well, we're only maybe a third to a half of the way through this event. And as we go to the North Oregon coast, the rainfall amounts have been even more prolific. Tillamook has picked up 2 inches of rain just since midnight. And there are some reporting sites in the Oregon Coast Range reporting upwards of 6 inches of rain since this event started yesterday afternoon, even upwards of 8 inches of rain into portions of the South Washington coast, coastal hills, the Willapa Hills. So again, we're talking substantial rainfall rates in those areas, but even here in the metro area, enough to produce quite a soaking on the roadways. Here's the last 3 hours of radar, and you can see as we put it in motion, it just looks like repeated rounds of dark greens and yellows indicating rainfall rates of 1 to 2/10 of an inch of rain per hour. As we go out a little bit wider, I want to show you that that extends quite a bit offshore, and the satellite imagery will help kind of fill in the blanks. You see that white plume there offshore? That's a good, 800-900 miles yet offshore. All of that is yet to work its way right on up into our area, which means this rain event is going to continue for at least the next 12 hours, if not maybe a little bit longer than that. Live look from our Wells Fargo sky camera. The Willamette River is up a little bit. No danger of Willamette River flooding, but certainly the flow is increasing, and it's quite muddy as a result, right? It's also very warm. It's 60 degrees at PDX, 58 in Hillsborough, 59 in Vancouver. Remember, the record high for today is 59, so we've already bettered that, right? Temperatures will probably slowly back down from 60 as we go into the afternoon, and the rain will continue at varying rates through the rest of this afternoon, through tonight, and probably into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Your full forecast comes up ahead in just a few minutes.
All right, Chris, thanks for that update. There's a lot to cover here. Of course, we know flooding and landslides are always concerns when we get a steady dose of rain like we've seen the last several days. KGW's Catherine Cook took a look at what the city of Portland is doing to try and prevent those problems.
Death, taxes, and the leaves on Debbie Kay's Northwest Portland street.
I call them applesauce, and they're very slick and hard to drive in.
The trees that drop these leaves grow in Forest Park, just 20 feet away. On Wednesday, leaf pickup crews will be by to haul them off. Debbie's raking them a foot away from the curb to help keep drains clear.
If the drains aren't clear, then water backs up. I have one neighbor who has been flooded by drains as far away as that one, and he lives down there. It gets very saturated.
Besides leaf pickups, the city of Portland is watching out for potential landslides. On Monday, crews with PBOT were out here in the West Hills looking for rain-soaked soil, slide risks, and other areas that could use preventative maintenance.
We're relieved to see that there's no cause for concern right now.
Dylan Rivera with PBOT says that could change. With heavy, relentless rain in the forecast, he's concerned that high elevation corridors could look much differently in a matter of days. It's why crews are clearing storm drains and culverts that could make the problem worse.
The day-to-day toll of the saturation is what could make those hillsides different tomorrow or in a couple days than they have been today.
For further flood prevention, PBOT set up 3 free sandbag stations around the city. That includes this one at Lents Park. And there's a 24/7 dispatch line to report landslides that are blocking streets or sidewalks but are not an immediate threat to public safety. That number is 503-823-1700. Meanwhile, over on Debbie K Street, it's back to raking and hoping
That people will have cleared their drains so that we don't have flooding.
In Northwest Portland, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
All right, we're not through talking about the weather here this afternoon. Chris McGinnis will come back here in a few minutes with a look at our 7-day forecast. There are some breaks, I should say, with all this rain in the 7-day. We're just not going to see any of those breaks today. You can also find the latest weather warnings and alerts on our website, KGW.com. One of our other top stories here this afternoon, a 6-year-old boy is dead after a dog attacked him early this morning. It happened shortly before the boy was heading to school. KGW's Alma McCarty is in Northeast Portland where this all happened this morning. So Alma, I know you talked with police a little while ago. What can you tell us?
Well, Drew, from what officers have told me, it's just an overall tragic situation. So the typical arrangement is this little boy, 6 years old. He gets dropped off here at a house behind me by his grandmother, who's friends with the homeowner, and then the homeowner goes ahead and takes him to school. That's what, again, typically happens. Now, the homeowner also is the dog owner, and those dogs are 2 Great Dane Mastiff mixes, very large dogs. Police say that those dogs today were in the garage. This morning before 7:30, the 6-year-old opened the door to the garage and one of the dogs mauled him. The second dog was also involved in the attack, but to a lesser extent. Portland Police Public Information Manager Mike Benner explains the woman did everything she could to try and save the boy's life.
It's a little boy. He's sick. I speak for everyone at the Bureau when I say that our hearts break for this little boy, for his family, for his friends. I mean, anytime something like this happens, it's a shock to the conscious, but to have this happen just weeks before Christmas, it's just unimaginable.
Now, Benner says animal control will take the dogs into custody. The owner injured her hands trying to fight the dogs off. At this point, PPB says it is really just too early to determine whether any criminal charges will be filed in this case. Live in Northeast Portland, Alma McCarty, KGW News.
All right, thank you, Alma, for that live report. Also in the news this hour, investigators in Clark County have released more information about an apparent quadruple murder-suicide. They say a man killed his wife, his brother, and 2 daughters before he turned the gun on himself. Alma also has the details for us on this story.
Once they brought the drone out, we heard the glass break in and stuff like that. And then once the loudspeakers stopped, we all really knew something terrible had happened.
What started as a welfare check on Northeast 92nd Street in Vancouver Sunday afternoon turned into a crime scene investigation by Sunday night. Nearby neighbors like J.D. Hartman recall the feelings of dread.
So when everything goes silent, like dead silent, it's like, like you just feel it. You feel it in your heart and you feel it in your bones, and it was super bone chilling, and we all just kind of looked at each other and we're like, man, this isn't good.
The big sheriff van pulled up and we knew something was off then because, well, they also were calling it a welfare check and SWAT was here. So everybody knew initially that it wasn't just a welfare check.
Lily Lewis says she and her family heard screams around 2:40 in the afternoon, but investigators say there was no communication coming from in or around the home.
I'm 100% certain they didn't have any exchange, because had we had an exchange or something with somebody at the residence, then we maybe have, or if we hear someone screaming for help, that creates that exigency right away. And of course, deputies are going to go in and deal with that and try to take care of, if someone's at risk right then and there.
Sergeant Chris Skidmore explains the suspect sent a text to a relative near Seattle Sunday morning that he had harmed other people in the house. However, that relative did not see the message until after noon.
So that was kind of what they were going off of. After talking with the family, we knew that there was a possibility of firearms involvements.
When deputies entered the home, they found 5 people dead.
We do believe we have kind of the relationships of the family. So the suspect obviously was deceased along with his wife, and then 2 adult daughters, and then the suspect's brother as well, for the total of 5.
Although neighbors we spoke with say they didn't know the family well, they're heartbroken for all involved.
That really does make you think you want to reach out more.
It was shocking, one. 2 was just, we all got that eerie feeling when it went silent, you know what I mean?
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
One more note to Alma's report there. According to numbers from the Washington Post, that shooting over the weekend in Clark County, along with another mass shooting in Texas, they mark the 37th and 38th shootings, where 4 more people died here in this country this year. Last year, that number was 36, and that was the highest number ever in the U.S. Israel is carrying out what it calls the most intense day of its ground operation in Gaza, impacting civilians in the crowded southern region of the Strip. Again, those people growing more and more concerned. The Israeli Defense Force says it's pushing into Gaza's second largest city at this point along the southern Strip. The Defense Force told many people there to seek safety in the Strip by moving south to avoid all the bombings, but they're now telling large regions in the south to relocate again as it expands its military operations.